What up, everybody? It's Friday, January 4th. Let's talk PlayStation. And there's actually some news to talk about this week. So the PlayStation 2 is halting production in Japan. So what that means is that Sony is not manufacturing systems to be sent to Japan. So once that current stock of systems that are actually being sold in Japan right now, once the store is out of stock, it's not getting restocked. Now some of you may be thinking, well, why are PS2s even in stores anymore? Well, yeah, they're still in stores, man. The system's 13 years old, but it is still being sold in stores. It's still being restocked. It's still being manufactured. Even Brazil actually just got the PS2 a couple of years ago. Last year, 2 years ago, they just got PS2 a couple of years ago. But the system is a behemoth, and it's doing so well in retail throughout its entire life. It's still being sold, but now it's finally starting to come to an end. For Japan, at least, Sony actually has not mentioned whether or not production is going to stop in America. Obviously, it probably should at some point. Like, it's crazy that the system is still selling so much. I mean, like, it's not a lot. Like, they sell a couple thousand units every month, but even still, a couple thousand units for hardware that's 13 years old is very impressive. But of course, what's the most impressive is the PlayStation 2 itself, the highest selling video game console of all time. Although I think the DS is now the #1 video game system in general, but like that's a handheld. Like, considering actual consoles you plug into your TV and stuff, PlayStation 2 is the #1 most sold system ever. I do love you, I always will love you, but you had a good life, man. Just take a rest. Like, if the PS2 is on like a deathbed and it's just like he's got the thing beeping up and it's like and he's about to die and he looks into my eyes and he's like, Ryan, and I'm just like. And then I close his eyes and I'm like, sleep well, you sweet, sweet prince. So this story's been making huge headlines and it's making a lot of people actually freak out. But basically, Sony filed a new patent December 9th of last year, which was a month ago. Basically saying that this patent is going to like try and stop used game sales by making it so that whenever you put a new disc into your PS3 or PS4 or whatever the machine's going to be used for, basically it would read the disc and then it would say, hey, you can't use this, basically blocking used games. So like the patent said, and like I just said, basically you put the disc into this new machine, PS4 maybe, we don't know what it's for, we don't even know if it's going to be used, quite frankly, but you put the disc into the system, and it uses NFC-like technology that basically reads the disc and kind of like checks it off, and like once the disc has been checked off and it links with that specific ID, I'm assuming your PlayStation Network ID, it would basically say, hey, this disc can only be used with this PlayStation Network account, and then if you were to put the disc in another system and it doesn't match up with the proper IDs, the game isn't going to play. Now, of course, the big freak out here is that people want rights to their ownership. They feel as if when they buy something, they're allowed to do as they please with it. They're allowed to sell it. They're allowed to do whatever they want with it. Once they buy it, it's theirs. And people feel a little robbed that this patent may allow people to not use used games. Like, oh, I can't bring my game to my buddy's house. I can't let people borrow my games. I can't sell my own game. They're my games. I paid for them. Now, there's two ways to look at this, really. I mean, there's good ways to look at it, and there's bad ways to look at it. Now, the bad ways, obviously, like I just mentioned, people want the right to sell their stuff, and people feel like they're being robbed of something. Now, the good parts of this, obviously, I do want publishers and developers to make money, and I do feel that developers should have to not deal with used game sales because, like, for example, Heavy Rain, great interactive drama type game, was really different, took chances, but, when a used copy of Heavy Rain gets sold, Quantic Dream doesn't see any of that money. That really upsets me, and I really wish they could see more of that money. Is this necessarily the best way to handle it? See, that's the double-edged sword we're looking at here. Now, personally, for me, I don't see much of an issue with this. I know a lot of people are thinking, you're probably thinking, oh, he's a Sony fanboy, he's got the PlayStation channel, all of his stuff's PlayStation, of course he's defending Sony. Well, no, because like, look at it this way, digital games, for example. A digital game, when you download something on PSN, you can't sell that, you can't do anything with it, it's tied to your PSN ID. Let's look at PC games. PC games have been like this for years with DRM and stuff like that. When you buy it, you can't sell it to GameStop. GameStop doesn't take PC games because you can't sell PC games. So for a while now, in the game industry, there has been this distinction of things you can't sell and things that when you buy into, you can't do nothing with it. It's tied to a certain name, a certain account. This has been going on for a while, so I don't see why people are getting so upset about this just because it would be on 360 and PlayStation, or just the next Xbox and the next PlayStation in general. Like, this is something that we're used to. PC gamers are very used to this, and current PlayStation users are used to this when they download something on their PlayStation Network account. But of course, I do have some red flags with this idea if this is even to be implemented. For one, what happens if my PS3 breaks? I mean, does this new patent, for example, does it read into your PSN ID or does it read to the system? Because if it reads to the system, and I have multiple PS3s, what if I try to use the one disc I bought in multiple PS3s? The damn thing better read my PlayStation Network ID, I'll tell you that right now. Of course, there's also the fact, what about rental services? Like video stores and GameFly and all that. How is that going to... Because that's a huge market, and that's going to absolutely destroy that market if Sony is not going to allow used games. Now, if there's one thing you can take away from this entire news story, it's that it probably won't even happen. Sony files patents all the time. They have hundreds of thousands of patents, and they barely use any of them. They really do. So personally, I don't even think they're going to use this patent. I think they're just getting it just to get it. But if it is true, again, I don't have much of a problem with it. I do have some concerns, but, who knows. But what is your opinion on this patent? I would love to hear some of your guys' opinions. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Panecki. Thank you for talking with me, and I'll see you next Friday.